Sprint for the Belgian Grand Prix. Did Lewis Hamilton deserve the 5-second penalty for causing the collision with Sergio Perez? I'm going to straight up say I think it was a harsh penalty. It was a racing incident, in my opinion, genuinely. And it comes back to the same old discussion that we have around penalties and how they're judged. Because penalties are not supposed to be measured or taken into account the consequence of an action. And if you want to look at the next 10 seconds after that incident, the consequence was nothing. Perez was still ahead of Hamilton. For me, it was side-by-side action. Hamilton loses the car slightly, taps Perez's car, and it's really unfortunate for Sergio, like massively unfortunate that his car then gets a hole in the side. But I don't see that being a 5-second time penalty. They were racing. And that, for me, is the stewards taking into account the consequence of Perez falling like a stone and then going into the pits and retiring.
If they'd have just carried on going down the straight and Perez's car had been fine, it was just a tap. Don't know why that's now twice that we've seen a Mercedes just tap the side pod and it's managed to puncture a hole in it.
Gaping hole.
Yeah, it's mad. But I don't understand, like... I've watched it back. I said I wanted to see the onboard before I made judgment. Hamilton doesn't have a snap of oversteer or anything. You watch the top-down view, which we saw many times. He's not cutting in, but it's two cars, in my opinion, going for like the middle part of the track where Perez could have left Hamilton more room. Hamilton could have maybe taken a more of an inside line. I think there's responsibility there for Hamilton to maybe be a bit more on the inside, but he is turning and he doesn't have a snap of oversteer, and Perez has to sort of judge the risk of, as a driver alongside me, how much can I squeeze him? Is it really worth it? So I'm really on the fence about it because I think it could go either way, and maybe that equates to it's a racing incident, but I think it, to quote Martin Brundle's famous phrase, I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other kind of moment where they both could have given more room. It's kind of two to tango. And yeah, I think if Hamilton had got a bit of a swapper on and really washed to the side, then yeah, I think it was a deserving penalty. But I don't think he does that.
Yes, we've got that clip here, Lewis running behind Perez. And first of all, the problem for Perez here is he just turns in a little bit too late to turn 14, and that's where Lewis sees an opportunity. So he's got the momentum, he gives it a go, and gets almost alongside the Mexican before he gets to turn 15. Actually, you look at that shot, he is very much alongside. So the move is definitely on, and I'm glad he went for it, and that's the whole point of a sprint race. But then, unfortunately for him, he gets a bit of understeer mid-corner. Perez doesn't seem to change his line. It's Lewis actually drifting away from that curb on the right-hand side. And he drifts away from it, understeers, and makes contact with the side pod of the Red Bull. And you can just see there the damage that it did just by the R of their sponsorship logo. So I think the problem was that it was more Lewis, you can see from the heli shot, it was more Lewis actually running out towards the Red Bull. I think this is probably what the steward saw, this moment here, where it's actually moving towards his line rather than Perez squeezing him. So I still class it as a racing incident. Like I say, I'm glad that Lewis went for the move, but unfortunately just picked up that bit of understeer mid-corner, and I think that's what the steward saw. The contact, the damage on the side of the car eventually led to Perez being out of the race. So yeah, I find it harder in retrospectively, looking back at that, find it harder to kind of, if I was Lewis, to kind of get myself out of that situation in the stewards room, but they made the decision straight away.
I thought it was a racing incident. I thought the penalty was harsh. I'll stand by that, having now watched and analysed it. Lewis had claimed the corner. There was an error before, the corner before, by Perez, and he was on the inside. Yes, the car did understeer a little bit. What is racing? If that's not racing, and therefore a racing incident, I don't know. I say it wasn't Lewis launching an impossible move. He was on the inside of the corner. So it did take Checo out of the race. So we have to consider that as well. And it was definitely the Mercedes sliding left rather than the Red Bull pinching him. So I understand what the stewards have done, but I would want to call that a racing incident, because Lewis can't vermouche. He can't disappear at that moment. He's claimed the corner. What's he going to do? He can't disappear.